Hello, hello. All right, sorry guys, messed up the stream there for a second. Okay, so wanted to start off. I saw Nope last night. Actually, maybe we'll start instead with Rings of Power. Just put out the first full trailer, and so the Lord of the Rings show that's going to come out on, I think September, like beginning of September. And I've got to say, whenever the first looks were dropping, I was not that into what it looked like we were going to get. And then the first teaser came out. No, I'm sorry. The first photos came out. I was pumped for that. The first teaser came out a few days ago. And honestly, it didn't feel like they were bringing something to life okay, I think what it mainly was that it felt too digital. It felt way too clean. It felt more like, because of that, it might be veering in Hobbit territory. But honestly, the trailer just put out, they've given an actual look at what the conflict is going to be. Story looks cool. I think the world that they're building and kind of the way that they tease it, I think I might be more into it than I thought I was going to be. It looks pretty good. If you haven't seen that, I would say seek out the Rings of Power trailer that just dropped. Looks pretty cool. Okay, but I think the main story is Oppenheimer. So they released a poster yesterday to it. Looks, I would say, looks very good. I think the biggest anticipation of Oppenheimer is, will Christopher Nolan, who is normally very conceit focused, loves messing with the mechanics of story, pushing the bounds of special effects, and he does a great job with that. And he, even though he's able to draw emotions out, creating memorable characters is not really his thing. So it's an interesting thing in terms of, but he's always gotten close to, emotion, personality through working with conceits and working with special effects. Thinking through, I mean, Dunkirk, he pulled out such levels of pride and joy and just danger and risk, just by the way that he put together this gigantic machine in Dunkirk. So he definitely has a way of getting you very emotionally involved in a story, but character not so much. So it'll be interesting with Oppenheimer to see how it is that he tries to enter the story. And I think that whenever Nolan first is releasing his movies, they've always done such a good job of drumming up hype for them. We'll always get just a small tease, normally a year before the movie comes out. And I think that Oppenheimer, the way they're previewing it, is falling in line with the way that they've successfully kicked off the best of his movies. So, a poster came out yesterday. It gives you, I mean, the main thing is just this huge, this fiery mess, where you then see Oppenheimer just right in the middle of it, is like the tiniest man. And it does it everything that you would think you would get from a Christopher Nolan biopic. Um, Experimenting, doing something strange, doing something weird, but in a way that feels like you're doing it to genuinely bring what the story needs or what the character needs. He always does that. And so I hope that he brings that same level of weirdness, experimentation to just the life of one person. And it looks like from the poster that he's going to at least he's going to at least be doing something interesting with it. And I was excited yesterday to then hear that Nope is going to be showing the first teaser of the movie. I already bought tickets to see Nope for yesterday, and so I was very excited. That, I mean, I wasn't that excited for Nope. We'll talk about Nope a little bit later. But then I saw that and I was like, well, fuck, man, that's awesome. I'm gonna go and get to see Nope. I'm sorry, gonna get to see a little bit of Oppenheimer. It makes Nope all the more worth it, and it does. So you get these. Okay, dark theater. The visual, the sound starts coming up, and you get what we love from Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan movies. You get this rumbling. The sound is the first thing that starts. You get this like ticking, grumbling, groaning, and you open up on just flames. Just like the, if you've ever looked, I've been obsessed with atomic bombs. Like ever since I was a kid, just like watching the footage online, what they're able to do, like it's terrifying but also beautiful at the same time. And it opens with just these like flames, and it is almost, it's a haunting but incredibly beautiful image, just the flames enmeshed in each other. And you think through things like Tree of Life or 2001: A Space Odyssey, the amount of different ways that you're able to shoot things like that. You think, oh, shots of fire, like, but they looks like water, the way that the flames are kind of engulfing themselves, but being never ending in the way that they're just continuing to grow larger and larger. And you see these sparks that are flaming, and they're juxtaposed by these very slow kind of like push ins and push outs. For it starts with a hat, like an eye, like a black and white hat, and then you just see the background of Cillian Murphy putting the hat on. You go in and out of these other images of these flames, of this destruction, and then you start to see him just in more settings of crowds. You see kind of like the anticipation of this thing that is being worked on, and it's growing, and you're hearing dialogue, you're seeing things on the screen that's counting down from like 11 months on the screen. You get these small numbers and they're made to look exactly like a bomb. The ticking is getting more and more, it's growing, it's increasing. It's giving the sense. That's the thing that I love, that is becoming more popular in movies now, particularly something that I think Christopher Nolan has done a very good job of, is creating anxiety. He's always done it with story, kind of like ramping it up. He's been doing it more and more with his musical cues in terms of using the shepherd's tone, where it constantly sounds like something is a noise is growing and growing and growing. Like you always are expecting it's always repeating. And through the repetition, it gets louder and it just causes huge levels of anxiety. Christopher Nolan does that all the time. He's doing it in this teaser. It's a very interesting teaser. Go see Nope. That's probably, I guess I could talk about Nope now. It's the best thing you're going to see in Nope. Nope is a good first hour and then a pretty imbalanced second hour. And yeah, it's unfortunate, but I don't know. Jordan Peele, I think it's kind of unfair for him. He was kind of propped up as this incredibly, I don't know, just kind of like magical type of filmmaker with Get Out. And Get Out was great. It had its problems, but then Us had a ton of problems. And you can tell that Jordan Peele is just kind of very happy with himself right now with the things that he's making, the stories he's telling. So, it was okay, but not great. Then we'll have a full review of that coming out later this week, though. The Sony bosses said that the studio deserves more credit for Top Gun Maverick succeeding at the box office because things like Venom paved the way. On Twitter, people were pretty much dragging these statements that Sony was making, saying, how in the world could Sony take credit for that? Venom was crap. But I will say, and you can go back to the weekly movie updates on this channel, I was saying that back in September of last year, whenever things like Venom was coming out. If you track how the box office was doing, it did pretty well in the beginning of 2021 whenever Kong and Godzilla came out. But then it was kind of a dull year. And things were constantly being pushed back. The first movie that studios put out there to say, we're doing it. We're not going to be stuck in this kind of playing a game of, the studios were stuck in a game of chicken. No one wanted to put their big movie out and then be part of a story of how there's continued failure. Movie theaters aren't interesting anymore. People are just staying at home streaming. Studios are stupid for not making things more available on streaming. Sony was the first one that put a big movie out there and saw a lot of success. And after that weekend, like not even the movie having a long time in the theater, after that weekend of Venom being in the theater, that's whenever Disney in particular, they put out their releases. That was the reason that they actually were saying that Eternals is going to only be in theaters, because Venom showed that people did actually have an interest. So while I think they kind of took what they said and made it into a ridiculous headline, I do think that at the time people should have been singing their praises more. And I think it's very right to say that they do deserve a bit of recognition, because people were not going to theaters. But I don't think it's so much that people weren't going to theaters. Studios were being chicken shit and not putting their movies out in theaters and promoting them in a big way. Sony was the first one to do that, and I think they deserve a bit of recognition for it. Then this week, Tarantino put out his podcast, Video Archives. Now, yes, this is a podcast. Every episode will be Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery, his co-writer on Pulp Fiction. He worked in the Video Archive store in LA in the 1980s, I believe it was. So he bought the collection of it years and years ago. And so I think each week they take 3 movies and just kind of talk about old movies. They just say what their experiences of is watching them and what they think. I think that's very cool, first of all, that a filmmaker now kind of has dedicated themselves to a platform where they're just going to talk about the movies that they like, the movies they like, the movies they don't like, how they watch movies, start to kind of see how it is that they go about thinking about movies. I don't know how much crossover that has between how you think about movies and stories and then how you actually are then as a filmmaker. But it'll be interesting to see. Most filmmakers, they're quiet. Tarantino's not the quiet type. You can tell in this interview, not interview, that's the thing, it's not an interview, in this podcast, that he is still just as full of himself. I hope that after maybe a few episodes, he calms down a little bit. And there's a lot of times where Roger Avery will kind of, well, try to say between the two of them, Roger Avery is kind of the more, I would say, has the more interesting analysis off the bat than Tarantino seems to. But Tarantino is so ready to speak that he just kind of interrupts all the time. So hopefully they evolve a bit more in the style. But I will say it's a very cool idea. I love the idea of Tarantino having his own podcast and us being able to see how it is that he and Roger Avery kind of go through movies. So check that out, called Video Archives. Ana de Armas says that there is no need for a female James Bond. I think that this is a kind of like that. What is it? Bill Burr, whenever he said, look, everyone out there that wants to complain that you're not getting a spot somewhere about something, then just go and make your own thing. Go make your own thing. Like, that's the thing that we're all here for. We're all here so that we can make our own things. You got to make something. If you want to make something cool, go make something cool. She made the point she was making was essentially James Bond is defined as one thing. And within that, there's a lot of room and space to move. But to say that in order to get gender equality means that we need to just replace something that's male with something that's female doesn't really seem to be building a legacy for women. It's just kind of like surrogating it. So she said, why don't we create an awesome kick-ass female spy and give them their own franchise? Like, they've tried it a few times. It's never really worked. Red Sparrow did not work with Jennifer Lawrence. What was that? The 225 or the 335 or something with like Jessica Alba and all that stuff. No one wanted Ocean's 8. So it's tough to do. That's the thing. It's tough to. There are tons of male spy franchises that come and go and they never work. But I think that I was happy that Ana de Armas came out saying to say that you need to just make James Bond a female is kind of like a stupid and lazy way to say that that's how we need to make something equal, and that just doesn't really make sense. Okay, I guess the big story of this week, and really last one for today, Netflix reported that they only lost 1 million subscribers. Now, it was predicted by them that they were going to lose 2 million in the second quarter of 2022. And my theory on what's going on here is that Netflix has had a pretty rough, I would say, calendar year. They've not had a lot of new subscribers. Their growth is kind of stagnating. And all the other subscription services are kind of getting a bit more notorious in terms of higher quality than Netflix. Netflix, everyone jokes about them that they just cancel all of the good shows and we get like 5 Kissing Booth movies. So I feel like Netflix is still in the long game. They need to keep investors happy. And while the first quarter of this year was not great, losing 200,000, they kind of managed expectations by predicting a terrible outcome with 2 million. But then when you only have 1 million, it doesn't sound so bad. And also, they rolled out what they're expecting to be their new features of the next year. The big ones are that there's going to be a cheaper ad-supported service in the beginning of 2023. And they are really going to crack down on the passwords by making it so that any device outside of the home, you're going to have to pay $3, an additional $3 a month per device that's outside of the home. Very unpopular, I would say. I don't think that's a very good idea, but hey, it might work in practice. But in terms of how it is that you're going to announce these things, how you're going to roll them out, I mean, rolling out bad news in a time wherever you're doing better than suspected, I think that might be the environment that they created for themselves. So we'll see. Netflix, I would say, is in a better shape today than we thought they were going to be. So we'll see how that pans out. I think that the fact that they're not seriously thinking about sports is a problem. Amazon and Apple, I think, if they are going to get ahead, is going to be because they are so serious about that. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see. It's still, I would say I think we're in the middle of the streaming war still, but we'll see what happens. I still think Netflix does need something. They need something that is going to kind of get them ahead. They're not doing anything right now that I would say really seems fully original. Stranger Things is the thing that everyone loves with Netflix. But I mean, Stranger Things is just a regurgitation of everything that most of you liked whenever you were a little kid. It's just not, it doesn't have that, like, HBO right now has Succession, which I would say is a fantastic show. And part of what makes it stronger than something like Stranger Things is that it feels like it's working and cutting from new cloth, whereas Stranger Things' appeal is that it is cutting from old cloth, which is fine, but it doesn't really have that sense of, if you're able to kind of create something new, something that feels very fresh and isn't kind of built on nostalgia, then I think that you are setting yourself apart. If you can create something very entertaining built on nostalgia, then good for you. Enjoy the numbers that come from that. But I don't think that that gets you as much respect. So we'll see if Netflix is able to make something in that vein. They said recently they want their own Star Wars. So I don't know, but we will see. Watch The Gray Man this weekend. I haven't seen it. I might watch it. That does not look like it. And it's funny that Netflix used, again, The Irishman whenever they said, we're going to stop with the vanity projects. The expensive vanity projects, we're not going to do that anymore. Meaning Martin Scorsese's $100 million gangster movie that was up for Best Picture. Meanwhile, yeah, they said that while they were releasing The Gray Man, which is a $200 million action movie that from the reviews looks really damn stale. So if you watch it, let me know how it is, because I don't know if I'm going to. But actually, this week I'll be watching Heat. This weekend I'll be watching Heat down at IFC. All right, well, that's it. Thank you guys very much for watching. Comment with news stories below, and if you have not already, please subscribe to 5 Minute Critic for future updates on reviews and movie news.